Hi guys, Tracy here with another process video. Today I'm going to be working with this week's sketch over at Nuts About Sketches. It's a double, and I think I'm going to be doing this side of it. I might do this. I'm only doing one. I'm really leaning towards this one. I like the look of the photo, although my photo block is going to be bigger because I'm putting two 4x6s stacked there, but I'm going to run some journaling along the edge here and layer some papers in behind and do a bit of maybe subtitling down there. So that's this is the sketch that I think is going to meet my needs for this layout, and these are the pictures I'm working with. We went bowling yesterday, and I am an immediate scrapper. I'm the kind of person who, if I don't scrap these bowling photos now, they'll never get scrapped. So I tend to always work on a combination of recently taken photos, and then sometimes I'll also go back. Like right now I'm working through my Disney photos at the same time, but when I got home from Disney I did a whole bunch of Disney scrapping, and now I've sort of started mixing in some more recent pictures and then also going back and doing some Disney pictures. So that's the way I usually scrap. I'm not a chronological scrapper, and I never go back and scrap a whole bunch of stuff all in a row from one period, because I just find that gets really overwhelming for me. I find that I really don't have fun scrapbooking when I do it that way. So this is the way that works for me. These are the photos I have. This was like the best captured moment of the day. She was like, "Yes, I got a pin down." Poor Sophie. She's a year and a half younger than Olivia, and so of course she always wants to do everything as well as Olivia does. But what I love about this photo is it really captures her happiness and pride at having knocked over a pin bowling. But also look, her little tummy is showing, and this is total Sophie style here. She always wears pants under a skirt with a t-shirt. Like this is, and the only thing that's missing from Sophie's style here is a toque. She almost always wears a toque, but she wasn't wearing a toque that day. So and our kids both, they pick out their own clothes, so so this is how she looks most of the time, unless if it's something really special, like if we were going to a wedding or even birthday parties, I just let them pick out their own. And then this one, I really love how you can't really see the motion other than in Olivia's arm here, but her hair is kind of like captured mid-air, and I just really like that. It's kind of like a captured moment of motion here. So, so yeah. So I love these two photos. What I did was I wanted to play off the fact that we were in a bowling alley, so I wanted kind of a retro feel to these photos. So I got Scott to print me up another copy of them with an effect on it. I don't know what effect it was. I can't help you guys with that kind of stuff because Scott takes care of all that kind of stuff. I do some on my cell phone, like I'll use Photo Booth and that sort of thing. And there's another one I use, I can't remember the name of it. But anyways, this was done in Lightroom, and I don't know what he did. It's one of the built-in effects that you just click a button and it puts it on, but I don't know what those are called. So I just think this kind of picks up on the retro. It's got a real green look to it, and the pins look more washed out, and the alley looks... these photos are looking a little bit more washed out than what they actually are because of my lights, but down here I think you can see that. You can still see the wood grain in the floor, but it just kind of gives it a bit more of a retro feel than these two. So I'm leaning towards these ones because when you do this with a photo, what I find is it kind of takes away some of the distracting things. Like you don't notice this yellow line and this kind of thing there, and even this thing here becomes kind of part of the picture, and all you see is the person and the bowling ball and the pins. Like that's like, it kind of helps to simplify a picture. So without doing any cropping or any fancy editing, with just a click of a button, sometimes you can change the focus of a picture. A picture can go from really busy with these distracting things down there, and like I said, these, to just more of a, okay, focus on the person, and focus on the person and the bowling ball and the pins. And it's kind of, I like that about those kinds of effects. So So that's what I think I'm going to scrap, and then these ones won't go to waste. I'll just stick these in my project life. So I always love a 4x6 photo that I can just stick in Project Life and not have to worry about doing a layout or decorating it up. So that's always nice. So I'm going to use these in place of this 7x5. So my page is going to be quite a bit more covered than in the sketch. And I'm going to be using my Studio Calico March kit, the Storyteller kit, or the Story Hour kit. I am working my way through this kit. I'm trying to get my kits used before the next one comes. So my next one is coming on Tuesday, which means next weekend I'll be scrapbooking with the new kit. So I want to get rid of all of this stuff. And whatever I'm not rid of, it'll just all go into my my stash. So what I've been doing, and this is different than any other kits that I've used before, is I just grabbed this really nice box by Becky Higgins. It comes with the page protectors in it when you get one of the big packs of page protectors. So I keep my page protectors in the bottom part of the box, but I took the lid off of it to use as a tray because I don't have a 12x12 tray to just keep paper in. And then this month's kit didn't come with a whole bunch of embellishments, so I'm just leaving the embellishments loose. But if there were a whole bunch of embellishments, I would put them in a little something else. Like I might put them on this tray, which is a tray I just keep on my desk with little cast-offs from other layouts that I might use soon. And if these don't get used probably by the end of this weekend, I'll just put them all back into my stash in different places. Okay, so enough talking. I just skipped all that other stuff I said and cut right to the action. Here I'm just picking what papers I'm going to use, and I stuck to the layout of this sketch pretty closely, and I knew I wanted to use that yellow paper with the letters on it. So I started with that, and I was leaning towards using that blue background paper for a couple of reasons. Firstly, I don't often use that color blue for anything, and it came in the kit, and I always find those kits are a really good opportunity to stretch your scrapbooking style a little bit and try something new. So I really wanted to use that piece, even though it was different than anything I would have ever picked to put on to use in my main scrapbooking. So because I'm not used to using that color, I really struggled with what to use with it. So I knew I wanted that yellow word paper, but then I was going back and forth between, I really liked this green striped paper that I just flipped over there. And I also really liked that orange one with the wiggly stripe in it. And then for a minute there, I was thinking about using that grid paper by Amy Tangerine. And my reasoning here, the reason I kept going back to that was I had a feeling that my white gel pen didn't have a whole lot of ink in it, and I knew I wanted to do a lot of journaling. So I'm kind of experimenting with a bunch of different light papers there, and my rationale was that I would outline those in a fairly broad point pen. If I had gone with all those light colors, it turns out I went back to the blue eventually. Here I finally find the piece that I like. It's this Cosmo Cricut medallion paper. I love it. For a second there, I think about the other medallion, and then once I saw it, I knew that that was the right paper for this layout. So again, another little moment of hesitation. And then I will eventually commit to this paper. And then boom, as soon as I took out that graph paper, I knew that this was the right color scheme for what I wanted this layout to look like. So I was happy with it at this point, so that's when I start cutting. It doesn't always take me this long to pick out my papers. I don't usually fuss with it like this, but I think just the fact that the pictures were slightly different than what I'm used to using with the lithography type of finish to them, and I really wanted to use that blue paper, but it was really tricky. But I sorted it all out. So here I'm going to outline all of these papers in a broad-tipped marker. And I chose a broad tip marker just to have a bit of a bolder look. These are bold papers, and so I want to, and through the magic of television, there it is all done. So now I'm just going to glue down these papers in their spots. And for a second there, I got the pictures mixed up. I specifically wanted Sophie on top because, well, she's our second born, and so sometimes she gets to go second a lot of the time, actually. So I like to always make an effort to put her first every once in a while whenever I can, so she doesn't think of herself as second in line or anything like that, poor thing. Um, so I'm outlining the photos here, and what I'm doing is I'm outlining them as a unit instead of outlining each one. And that's just to make it not be so busy and just for something different, I guess. So I went back with a bolder marker because the matte photo paper tends to suck up marker, and it wasn't coming out as dark or as bold as I wanted it to. So that's just some K & Company Smash washi tape that I'm just putting on the top and the bottom there. And now I'm just kind of thinking about what I'm going to do here because yeah, I hadn't chosen my title at this point, and so for a minute there, I was gonna make this title be Bolorama Mamas, believe it or not. Um, but thank goodness this wasn't actually at the Bolorama, so it didn't make sense to do that, and that would be a really silly title, I think. So I'm glad I went with bowling with the title that I came up with, which was Bowling Beauties. But at this point, I hadn't thought of Bowling Beauties yet, and I was still going with, I think I was going up with Bowling Up a Storm. So I was going to put bowling and storm in big letters and then put up in smaller letters. So I'm trying to pick out a font for the word storm. And I'm trying to look at some bold thickers that are going to add some dimension because the bowling letters are flat because they're those Studio Calico craft. It's like a whitewashed craft. And so I'm thinking my second word in this title should have some dimension to it. So I think I'm still thinking about bowling up a storm at this point, but at some point really soon, I think it's now, yep, I decide to go with Bowling Beauties. So I decide to put Beauties in a tiny type, or at least a smaller type. I have two picked out there. And so I go with those Cosmo Cricut tiny type letters in navy blue, and it's the typewriter font, and I love that font. I use it a lot. That's my second sheet of those, and I bought a whole bunch because, well, a whole bunch meaning two more sheets because I do go through them a lot. They're my kind of standard tiny letter that I use almost all the time. So I'm just putting all those letters in place and then adding the word Beauties underneath. And yeah. So those Studio Calico letters, the whitewashed craft ones that the word bowling is in, I'm going to outline those now, and I'm having a bit of marker difficulty here, and so I switched to a broader point in a second. But I wanted to say something about this because they look like they're matte, as in they look like they're not shiny and that you could use any marker on them. But what I found is that my marker actually did smudge on these. I used my Pitt pens, and I used my Pitt pens. Sorry, I'm just trying to think about what pens I used. Yes, those are my Pitt pens. And it did transfer onto the photo at some point. I think it was maybe here where I had my hand on the layout. And so really, when you're outlining those letters, you really do need to use a slick writer or a Lumo Color by Stettler marker. Any marker that's designed for writing on slick surfaces would do. So here I'm using my centering ruler, which is a really handy thing to have because you can make your lines any size because there are different lines there and you can go by, one or two. Now this white marker causes me a lot of grief in this layout because I had a feeling that my white marker was going to run out, and I was right, it did run out. And so that meant that I had to write every letter over and over and over again to get it fully to show up. And so that is the result, is that I really don't like my handwriting in this layout, but I power on anyways because I don't have a local supplier for these Signo Uniball gel rollers, and so it takes me 2 weeks to get another one of these at the very least. So I kind of had to power on because I didn't want to wait 2 weeks to finish this layout. So, and from the magic of video editing, I'm done. And that was a painful process, so I just cut it all out because it took me forever because I had to rewrite every letter like 3 or 4 times. Um, I'm just erasing my line with a white eraser. That's important. And as long as you use the white Signo gel roller, you can erase right over that. I have used other white gel pens that smudge when you erase over it, so that's worth thinking about and testing before you try your white pen on a layout if you're using pencil lines to guide you. So now here I'm just using a bunch of circle punches to cut various sized circles that are going to be the embellishments. I decided to go with circle embellishments, which coincidentally are the embellishments that were on the sketch anyways. So I just put my circles where they were on the sketch. So that was kind of handy, but I went with circles because it kind of picks up on the bowling theme with the balls and whatnot. And when I'm clustering my embellishments, when they're small embellishments like this, whether they're circles or any other thing, um, I'm I, I'm not trained in design or anything like that, but just by what I go by what looks good to me, and what looks good to my eye is to overlap some of them kind of on the edges and then overlap some of them entirely, and then to have like in within each cluster have some that are overlapped and then have one that's like a satellite that's sort of separate and still with them but off to the side a little bit or down below a little bit. And so that's how I generally cluster these kinds of things. Um, and that's just what looks good to me. And so that's what I do. I try to not, I want to spread out my embellishments, but I don't want to have it look like, the classic sticker sneeze that we talk about from the way we used to scrapbook. I do sometimes scatter things like that, but on purpose, but particularly buttons and that sort of thing, I might scatter. But in this case, I didn't want to have a too scattered look, so I try to overlap them on the edges and that sort of thing. So I'm just outlining each of those so they've got definition, and I'm gluing them all down. And here I'm just trimming up the sides. I always have things hanging off the edges, so I have to go and trim them. I thought about putting a paper clip there, but I didn't end up going with it. And now I'm looking for embellishments because this layout needed something else, and it needed some type of texture or some dimension. So I was looking for chipboard and dimensional stickers, and I ended up going with these letters. These chipboard letters by Cosmo Cricket. It's from their 23 collection. And I wanted the numbers to kind of go with the keeping score and the number of pins and that sort of thing. And the 5 didn't really look good up by the 4, so I put it down in the corner there. But then after I put it there, I realized it kind of looks like it says 5 Bowling Beauties, and there were only 4 of us. And I don't think Scott would want to be called a beauty anyway, so I ended up not doing that. But here I'm outlining these chipboard elements because they look a little washed out compared to the other things that were all outlined. So I wanted to keep it consistent and tie them in with the rest of the layout. And I'm using a Lumocolor pen for that so that it won't smudge because it is a chipboard element and it's got like a shiny finish to it. And I really wanted to use chipboard on this layout because I hadn't used thickers. So because those Studio Calico letters and then the tiny type are both flat, I needed something up off the page. So these chipboard elements really did the trick. And so, because at this point I realized that looks like it says 5 Bowling Beauties, I decide what I'll do is I'll journal inside of each of those numbers so that it's clear that those numbers are embellishments instead of having the 5 be part of the title. So I think that what I'm writing there is cameras were brought, meaning 5 cameras were brought, and then I put like one on the one I put bowling alley or one alley or something, and on the two I put girls for my girls, and then on the three I put three throws, and then on the four I just put our family name because there was four of us, so it's sort of like, you know, one bowling alley, two kids, that sort of thing. Then I ended up pulling off the five because I realized that didn't do it, and I replaced it with that Amy Tan sticker, that dimensional sticker that says Think Big. So I just added some glitter tape there and in two places there. And then I'm just punching out some little tiny hearts with my EK Success Double Heart Punch. I never use the outside punch. I always only ever use the inside. But anyways, I'm just putting those over top of the glitter tape just to tone it down a little bit because it's very sparkly. It's beautiful, beautifully sparkly, but I didn't want it to overpower anything. So what am I doing next? Oh yes, and then I'm adding those little twinkle goosebumps, which are awesome, and I hadn't had a chance to use them yet. So I thought this, with all the circles, this was a perfect chance to put some of those on a page. So, and what am I doing next? Oh yes, I am outlining that Amy Tan dimensional sticker, just to try to give it a little bit more to make it more substantial. It's not quite as heavy as the 5 was, and I felt like that really a bigger or stronger element should have gone there, but I couldn't find another one, so I just outlined it and hoped that that would give it more oomph. So here's just a close-up of all the different parts of the layout. So thanks everybody for watching, and I hope y'all have a good weekend.